Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We're back after 2 days off. Every Wednesday and Thursday during the regular season, we are off, but we are back getting ready to get after it. Now, remember, this week we have another international game on Sunday. So we're going to do 2 of the weekly start-sit streams. We will have one Saturday at 4 Eastern, and we'll be back at the usual time, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Now, normally on Saturdays, we also have the gambling show with John Ryan that still will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern, and DFS show as well as part of the same. We're going to pre-record that one, and so there won't be comments during that one, but if you want to catch that show, it will go up right at the posted time. I appreciate everyone who has consistently made me part of their fantasy football experience. I am very, very appreciative of you. Thank you for hanging with me on football days. Today, bottom of the hour, Adam Thompson of bookies.com, expert gambler coming in to give you some gambling advice, and I'll go over the Thursday night game and some players trending downward. All right, Thursday night football. Probably not a long, drawn-out process here, but the Bears do win 16-13. It was nice. The game opened at 3, and then it moved to 3.5, and that was a big hook because ultimately, that was the determining factor of the game. But the Panthers don't score a touchdown offensively in this one. Amir Smith-Marset takes a punt return in the first quarter to a touchdown. Some phantom flag shows up, but apparently it was waved off, and that was the only touchdown they scored. Meanwhile, Bears get 1 touchdown and 3 field goals, enough to cash the check and bring in the win. This should be Tyson Bagent's last start. Justin Fields has been practicing. Now 11 days off until their next game. Fields should be back. Take that for what it's worth. Fields hadn't been running for a lot of yards this year like he did last year. But again, he got DJ Moore to that 50-point fantasy game. So hopefully, Charlene, welcome back. So we're very hopeful, and we'll get to these players in a minute, but DJ Moore, and I have a lot of investment in him, and he maintained a floor with Bagent, but we need that ceiling. But anyway, Bagent does fine. Obviously Brian Burns, the edge rusher, was out for the Panthers, and he's like the main source of their pass rush, and the Bears' offensive line is now healthy. So basically, Bagent did have enough time to throw. They tried to bring some pressure. Bagent was nice and breaking, contained sometimes. Obviously looked a little skittish sometimes doing it, but nonetheless, it worked out. Khalil Herbert surprisingly had full practices during the week, but the Bears, like they did with Fields, not that Fields practiced in full, he didn't, but they took caution and they give each of these guys 11 more days to get ready for the next game. So in the meantime, Deontay Foreman carries the mail again, 21 for 80 and a touchdown, 2 catches for 12. Now, look, if you heard me in the preseason, I said all along, Foreman was easily, not even close, the best running back in that backfield. I was invested in him 13th round of fantasy drafts. Clearly, that didn't work out. They played him in week 1. They deactivated him every week until Herbert got hurt. I don't know what the Bears are going to do because Matt Eberflus, in my opinion, if you can't see that Deontay Foreman is far better than Roschon Johnson and far better than Khalil Herbert, Herbert's more explosive. I'll give him that. But if you want to grind, you want to break tackles, you want to be a tough interior runner, Herbert and Foreman will be a beautiful 1-2 punch. I have no clue what Eberflus is going to do. I'd like to say Foreman's the lead, Herbert's the change-up, and Roschon Johnson gets situational snaps. But I have no idea how they're going to play that out. I don't trust the Bears coaching staff for much of anything. But that said, Foreman, obviously, roster him until you see. I hope they don't deactivate him like they did when Herbert was healthy last time. Obviously, after his performance in these 4 games, again, any rational person would say you can't move him back, but it's the Bears. And I still don't understand how Darrington Evans is getting 8% of the snaps and 2 touches and 2 targets. Don't understand how he's involved at all. I would have given Roschon Johnson at that point more work, but neither of them did much of their opportunities. It was really only Foreman that did anything. I mean, Roschon gets 4 catches, 14 yards. Again, you saw the clear difference when they were running between the tackles too. Foreman makes people, he breaks them. He just plows through them. Extra yard, extra 2 yards consistently. Anyway, Johnson, we thought was a career special teamer. Maybe he'll be a good, blocking back. He can't pass protect. I'm going to give him that. But right now, he's kind of what we thought he was going into the season. All right, DJ Moore, fine. Floor game, 5 for 58, 9 targets. Is the best you could hope for with Bagent. And they got in the red zone. They threw the ball to Mooney. Wow. It didn't pan out, and that Foreman got the touchdown. I would like to have seen Moore get that. Can't believe they're not running slants to DJ Moore. They're running him on the perimeter when Bagent, getting him in space on the slants would have been smart. They didn't. But again, it's Matt Eberflus and his crew, so not expecting much there. Other than that, if you started Cole Kmet, you were happy with it. Cole Kmet, 5 for 54, and he ran it for 1 yard too. So, 10.4 PPR for a tight end. Kmet, he had 3 good tight end games in a row with Bagent, and we know Justin Fields has chemistry with him. So Cole Kmet, he's that borderline-ish, top 10 to 12 tight end going forward. DJ Moore, I still think, honestly, I think he's a top 10 receiver going forward. I think when he gets Fields back, we're going to see he had like 300-yard games, with that time with Fields. So I think we're going to see a lot of that down the stretch. All right, not much more to say about the Bears. Probably spent too much time in them. Charlene, stashes, Rico Dodal, and Miami defensive special teams. Miami was if they're on the bye, definitely pick them up. I held them on rosters in a lot of my leagues where I had like extra bench spots. I held them. As soon as Jalen Ramsey got back, I figured they'd be dangerous. And the more they go, the better they'll be. They got a pass rush. And with Ramsey, their other corners can be allowed to get more help from others because Ramsey will be able to take away part of the field. And Miami, regardless of opponent, can be very, very viable for fantasy. I would even play them in tough games at this point because they can get sacks. They can pick the ball off. Fangio's defense is for real. And so that's going to be solid there. Rico Dodal, he probably I don't know how much work he gets, but at some point, Dallas might say, look, we need an early down presence. He might get more work. So definitely a stash for sure. All right, let's see what else we got here. Panthers side of the ball. Maybe Bryce Young figures it out down the road. We said in the preseason, it's hard to bet on an outlier. It wasn't just his height. It was the whole package of things. It was that at that height, there are very few quarterbacks, that are that height at all, but B, that can see. You can't see through the linemen. And so you've got to play the game so differently to get different viewing angles. And then if he goes to the outside, pass rushers chasing you down, you're going to take big hits. That's where the weight is an issue, that he's so small, he eventually will get broken. And players that size, you just don't hold up. And this is some vicious hits you're taking from linebackers and edge rushers. So again, 21 for 38, $185 against, really not a good Bears defense. Now, I did say this. The Bears often bring it at home. When the Bears play inferior opponents at home, they bring it. For whatever reason, when they played the Raiders, they brought it. I thought they would bring it here, and they did. They brought it. Now, Bryce Young doesn't have a lot of great weapons. I'm going to give him that. You got to say for sure. He just, Chark was out. And say what you will about Chark, but Chark can play football. When Andy Dalton was in, he looked, fine. Adam Thielen got his slot stuff, 6 for 42. The Bears limited, any big plays because he had a number of big plays earlier in the year. But Thielen again, PPR, wide receiver 2 probably going forward. I don't see him going away. The floor will be there. I don't know that we get the great ceiling we had in that 4-week run where he went nuts, but I think the floor play is there and the target volume is super high. So there's that. The backfield, it's Chuba Hubbard, but he's not good. 9 for 23 against the Bears, not even 3 yards to carry, 2.5-ish. Against the Bears, that's not cutting it. It's not a good defense. And the offensive line, they got most of their line back, but they haven't played well. They got Bradley Bozeman back. Austin Corbett's back too. 2 interior linemen that were counting on them this year, but now they've been back. But it's not making a difference. I mean, Hubbard is just not good. Hubbard is your classic number 3 running back in the NFL. And that's who they have. That's what they're using. They're pissed at Miles Sanders for whatever reason. And, Sanders played behind a great line of Philly for those years. And that probably made Sanders look like more than he really was too. So Sanders got some garbage time, a couple catches for 15, but I don't think we spent any more time wasting. And then Mingo, 7 targets, 3 for 20, played every snap except for 1. Nothing really to talk about there, but the Panthers just not good. Let's see. Charlene, what games have bad weather? I haven't looked at that yet. Because the weather changes so quickly. So I take my first look on Friday afternoon. Then I go back Saturday morning for the XM show and I try to see if there's anything going there. So with weather, if the winds are over 15 miles an hour sustained, I start looking at it as a potential weather game. Usually snow, unless it's blizzard type, heavy, like 6 inches of snow during a game, 3 inches or less of snow in a game, usually advantage offense, because if the field is a little bit slick, the receivers know where they're going. Defense is a reactionary position. So there's a bit of an offensive advantage there. But then once it gets to the mammoth amounts, 6 inches plus in a game, now it's the offense takes the hit because nobody's moving in that. And defenses could push you, press you, and now you're not even getting into your route. So it's a sliding scale. When you mix wind and precipitation, becomes a little bigger of an issue. But on its own, just we're at the point now, the rain would only be in the warmer states. But rain, snow again. It's really got to be a combination of things. But with wind, unless it's over 15 miles an hour, really closer to 20, it really doesn't really have a big impact on that. Great question, Charlene. All right. Hey, if you have the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports channel, I will be on Saturday with Mario Puig, 1 to 3 Eastern. Sunday, 9 to 10 Eastern, Alan Soslowski. And remember, 2 sit streams this weekend on the channel you're watching. We'll be on Saturday at 4. We'll be on Sunday at the usual 11. Tomorrow's 11 a.m. show with John Ryan. That one's going to be pre-recorded, so there won't be any audience participation. I have a draft I have to do with Dan Klassens for the Disabled American Veterans. We're going to do a mid-season best ball draft, so I got to be there for that. Charlene, the overs and unders. Again, there's I think I always talk back. There was a Tom Brady game against the Titans, and this obviously is 15 years ago, maybe longer. And when I looked at that game, it was going to be about 4 or 5 inches of snow. And I said, you know what? I'm going to play Brady in DFS 5 touchdowns later, right? So the snow games are weird because sometimes all hell breaks loose in them. And sometimes the defenses just get so off guard and discombobulated. A lot of the trickeration they try after the snap doesn't always work in the snow. So it's very difficult. Now, the other thing, Charlene, is the over and unders often get adjusted when the weather report comes out. So what'll happen is this game may open at 44. Now, all of a sudden, if we have heavy rain, all of a sudden we see a drop. Oh, Tom McLaughlin's got a question. Can I mention the Dr. Scientist has said about the 30 grams of protein? Did I mention that on one of these shows? It's Gary Brecka, the scientist, Brecka. Oh, I wonder if I was babbling on one of my shows. Yeah. So anyway, I'll give you guys I'll get back to football in a minute, I promise. I usually don't go off topic, but Tom, this is good. So basically, there was a book, Gary Brecka, there's another author who wrote the book, The 4-Hour Body or something like that. He references that. So it wasn't his idea, but here's the deal. And if within 30 minutes of waking up, you take 30 grams of protein, for me, it's a protein shake, and it's 30 minutes of solid state cardio, static state cardio. That's not fast cardio. So, right, you'll often I have this elliptical. It's a under the desk elliptical. It's under my desk. And so that I pedal away while I'm working. And so that's the static state cardio. And you do that for 30 minutes, within the first 30 minutes of waking up. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. And I have noticed, first of all, I always need like a coffee in the middle of the day to get through. Since I've started this, nothing. I do not need a second coffee. I am energized throughout the day. Supposedly, if I do this for a month, it will have some positive effects on my body as well. Don't know what I need, but hey, great. But how I feel, it's been pretty simple. But Gary Brecka, he's all over, YouTube, TikTok. He's a longevity expert. He was a scientist. I would follow his stuff. Let me get Chad's questions. Charlene, you're very welcome as always. And then we'll get back to some player trends here. Got Adam Thompson coming in the bottom of the hour. Chad, do I think Pollard has reduced his price of props enough by being terrible to be a good value against? So here's the problem, right? We don't know what the hell to expect in that game. if Dallas's defense comes out on DeVito and they do a number where they're scoring 2 touchdowns, which could happen, Dallas might not need to score. They might not need to play their starters heavy. It's difficult. In theory, the Giants defense has actually played better the last few weeks. Dexter Lawrence is like a wrecking ball on the interior defensive line and makes it tough to run on. And Pollard has not had a good rushing game in over a month. And he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. So it's a tough bet. I talk about this, and this is important. This is important, actually. So when teams, like last year, Zeke Elliott was the lead back. All right, Tony Pollard is more explosive, bigger plays, obviously. But here's what Zeke Elliott did. It was an innings eater, I call it, like in baseball. He takes the hits, but he also sets the tone for the defense. The defense gets used to playing at Zeke Elliott speed, right? And then Tony Pollard comes in, and all of a sudden Tony Pollard's playing at Tony Pollard speed. The defense, it's muscle memory, right? You're playing at the speed, and you can't just, Pollard's in, now we got to play fast. It's a down-to-down thing. We see it time and again. The change of pace guy looks great. Jaylen Warren looks great. Tyjae Spears looks great. If they ever become the guy and the defense is playing at their speed instead of the speed of the starter ahead of them, all of a sudden we say, oh, that's why this guy was a 3rd-round pick, a 5th-round pick. That's why this guy's a backup. So that's kind of what happens. So with Pollard, I think we're seeing that this year. We're not seeing those explosive plays because the defense plays at Pollard speed. It's a great question, Chad. I was at the Cowboys and Daniel Bellinger. No, I don't think so. I don't think we can trust Tommy DeVito to get anybody the ball. Last week, he comes in, the game was out of hand, and the Raiders were already celebrating, right? And so he completed more than the 2 passes to Saquon that he completed the week before in relief. But it's one of those things. Sometimes we make that analysis, say, okay, young quarterback, get the ball to the tight end. Their line sucks. Bellinger's going to need to block. They need as many bodies protecting DeVito as possible. I don't see how they could responsibly put him out on targets. So there's that, right? So, Bellinger is a tight end 2, top 20 to 24 tight end. All right, maybe in that range. I just don't see the upside because remember, Waller is a move tight end. Waller is a seam stretcher, right? It's not like we're going to move Bellinger in. All right, you're Darren Waller. They need a receiver to take that role. But with their quarterback situation being so awful, and Tyrod Taylor might not be back in 3 weeks. He has 3 more weeks off with the IR, but he might not be back after that. He was saying it's not a season ender, but at some point, if he's hurt bad enough, the Giants, what do they gain? They probably want a high draft pick at that point. And Tom, they're going to research it. I get it. Charlene, meanly. Oh, thank you. I try. Just stay disciplined, right? All right. Chad, the Darren Sproles effect. Yes. Love that one. And I'm going to get to Marco's question. I'll get to some player trends. Marcos, good morning to you as well. Would I rather have Debo or Ayuk? Oh, man. I'm going to say Ayuk. Debo has not consistently had the big game since that 1,800-yard season a couple of years ago. And also the injuries, it's not surprising. Other than that 1,800-yard season, Debo's always been nicked up. He has very long health history. Ayuk stays pretty healthy. That his role in the offense is outstanding. They use him at a multi-layered approach. They use him a little more downfield this year than they had, but they also use him intermediate, short. He's a hybrid. He could do anything they need him to do. He's like a true superstar. And not that Debo isn't, but I trust Ayuk to stay on the field more. And I think Ayuk's role is more sustained from game to game. And he's almost cornerback proof. He's that good of a route runner that I think he's one of those elite guys, but he doesn't get used. You don't see that 15 targets like we're seeing for some of the superstars, but on 8 or 9 targets, he still has bigger boom potential. Great question. All right. So let's, my one quarterback faller. He's not falling from an NFL level at all. He's growing from an NFL level, but from a fantasy level, he's falling. It's Lamar Jackson. Just doesn't get the touchdowns. He had the one big game a few weeks ago, but most of the season, it's like we saw last year for the after 3 weeks last year. It was 0 or 1 passing touchdowns in almost every game. Yardage last 2 weeks, 187, 157. He's playing great for the NFL, for the offense, for leading the team, getting them victories. Great. Last week he ran for 60 yards, 17 the week before. But for fantasy, Lamar, obviously he's a top 10 because he's running. But realistically, he's not much beyond that because we are just not getting yardage. We're not getting touchdowns with any consistency. So he's almost like that boom bust play. The floor is okay, but I mean, 2 weeks ago when it was 157 and a touchdown at 17 yards, what, 15 points maybe? Not that bad every week, but we're not seeing the 30-point games we were hoping to see this season from Lamar. So that's all. But he's fantastic from an NFL level. I mean, like literally he's an MVP candidate. But for fantasy, no, he's not really getting it done week to week. So you got him, you're starting him, but there's a world if you got like CJ Stroud, who had been on waivers at one point, and you picked him up just to have a second quarterback. There's a very real discussion based on opponent, whether you play CJ Stroud or whether you play Lamar Jackson. Very real discussion for that. Running back negative trends. James Cook, when he gets the ball, he does okay, but the fantasy production's not there. I mean, look at the last 2 weeks alone. Last week, 6 for 20. He gets 4 catches, 19 yards. So that's 39 yards and 4 catches, 7.9 PPR points. Flex, right? And the prior week, 14 carries, 67 yards. That's fine. It's almost 5 yards a carry, but then 1 catch for 6 yards. So again, we're looking at 8.3 PPR points. So he has the occasional game he scores, the occasional game where he gets big yardage, but it really isn't consistent. And overall, I just think there's a lot of flow problems with the Buffalo offense. It's a very problematic situation. Josh Allen gets it done for fantasy, and Diggs gets it done. So you don't worry about them, obviously. But the ancillary players, we saw a hot streak from Gabe Davis. Now 3 of the last 4 weeks has been like very poor performances. So they're not getting everybody cooking. Khalil Shakir and Kincaid obviously are getting it done now. But it's kind of funny how it's week to week in different players. But Cook's the one who's kind of out. He's the one that doesn't have it going. So right now, you lower expectations, you treat him like a flex, and you're getting enough points and enough volume to say, yeah, I trust you as a flex. But and you hope for the boom weeks. But right now, not so great. And since we talked, Charlie and myself about gamble on the Cowboys-Giants game, let me see if Adam's got that on the list of games for today. He doesn't. So, Dallas has been very good about crushing bad teams. It's like their defense does not take weeks off. They see a bad opponent, they don't let down. They come in like a shark in sensing blood in the water. And that said, they probably keep the Giants from moving the ball. Now, if Dallas gets a big enough lead, can Tommy DeVito engineer garbage time? I don't know if he can. If Dallas checks out early in the third quarter, that's what we worry about. If they check out and they start putting subs in, 17 points, a big number to cover. And Dallas has been hammering opponents. We could see this game, we could see a 40-point lead in this game. But if that lead is only 24-0 in the third quarter, and all of a sudden, 8 minutes up the third, Dallas, I'll put some subs in. We got this game. And all of a sudden now Giants get, field goal, late touchdown. Dallas stops playing on offense. That 17 number is scary. It's very scary. So and it's a divisional matchup. Say what you will. Now, and the thing I like for Dak, if they have to throw, Dak is great against the blitz. And we know Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, loves to blitz. And that's his nature. He's going to blitz. But Dak does extremely well about his reads against the blitz. Knows where to find his receivers quickly, the hot reads. Very, very good with that. And so that's a bad matchup for the Giants defense. Games I'm taking. All right. This is what I'm taking. I'm taking the Lions -3 against the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers play good teams. They're not good. Pittsburgh -3 against Green Bay. That line should be bigger. I don't think the Green Bay offense is going to hold up against Pittsburgh defense. Is playing at such an elite level right now. And I tell you one thing. Last week, we saw, I know they made a big deal about Matt Canada being on the sideline, but the big deal was they were running the ball out of under center, and that's huge. They were running out of shotgun, and it was not effective. All of a sudden, we saw Najee Harris just play the way we saw him play in the past with that under center running attack. And I think in this game, that's something they're going to be able to get at with Green Bay. And Najee Harris can actually improve the entire offense by letting him do what he's supposed to do all along. I do like Arizona +2 at home against the Falcons. Falcons are not a good football team. Their defense is fine. The offense is just disjointed right now. And Arthur Smith, now he's kind of got caught up into so many things. So, that's kind of where we're at. And so I like the Cardinals to come in. Kyler Murray. I expect James Conner back. Hollywood Brown is obviously there. The band is back, like the Blues Brothers said. We got the band back. I think those three, I think they can make it happen on offense. And then I like the Bucks -1 in this game. And I'm trying to remember now. It's been mid-season. I've been having these like little things where I'm remembering once I do the games, like who we playing here. So I guess I got to do a double check here. And Tampa Bay is a 1 point. They're playing Tennessee. Tennessee on the road has been awful. I know Tampa Bay might be down some corners, but I think the Tampa Bay offense is in for a big game here. Tennessee is not going to get to Baker Mayfield. The protection that they've gotten him all year, they're number one pass protecting in the league. Play action's been great. Obviously, Evans and Godwin are a massive advantage over the corners and defensive backs of Tennessee. So I think they do really. Tampa does really well at home. And again, there'll be a full week of film out on Will Levis, and there are things. Todd Bowles is going to blitz him, and I think we're going to learn a lot in this game. So that's good. Chad DeVito, like I said earlier with DeVito against the Raiders. The Raiders had already won that game. They were thinking smoking cigars in the locker room like they were. They were already knowing they won that game. And they knew who DeVito was when he came in from the week prior. So they were already like celebrating. So I don't put personally, I put no stock in Tommy DeVito having done what he did against the Raiders late, because I think the Raiders were already getting ready for that big celebration. No Josh McDaniels, they were excited that he was gone. So I didn't take much from that. Chad, thank you. Jamel Dean back at practice Friday. Now, it's going to be interesting because very few players have gotten cleared the first week this year after a concussion. It's like super rare, but if they get Dean back, that's huge. Yeah, they really need Jamel Dean. But I still do like Tampa myself. I think offensively, they're going to get cooking here. Obviously, we like some unders this week, too. I got Adam Thompson coming in a couple minutes, too. But unders this week, Cleveland and Baltimore under 38. I don't see a scoring going on in that game. New Orleans, Minnesota is one of my favorite unders of the week. It's like Josh Dobbs was miraculous last week without knowing the playbook. New Orleans is a completely different defense. Even though they're on the road, it's a tough defense. And you just don't know enough of the audibles, the checks, protections. It's going to be difficult. And Houston, Cincinnati under 47. That number might go down now that we're not going to see Higgins. But I think people are getting all excited about a big score fest there. I think Lou Anarumo does enough to slow that offense down in Houston. And I think that ultimately Bengals are going to have their best success running this week. And, Jamar Chase is banged up. All right, let's get to a couple more trends before Adam comes in a second here. All right, which one do I want to talk about here? Devontae Adams. I'm nervous about Devontae Adams right now. Charlene, right. Rico Dowdle, good play this week, because if Dallas gets that big lead, right, he should see significant carries later. We could see him with 10 carries. Yeah, and if the Giants are already down, they might even pull Dexter Lawrence out, and that could give him more room to run. So I like that. All right, so Devontae Adams, look, not his fault. He's still a superstar, no question. But now he's got Aiden O'Connell throwing the ball the rest of the season. Teams are going to bracket him. They always do. They're going to put the top corner on him most of the time when they can. We've seen that too. But you see, the thing is with Aiden O'Connell, he has Jacoby Myers. And if he's looking toward Adams' direction and there's no window, you default. All right, this other dude's open. Let's get the ball. You go to your next read. And the Raiders' offensive tackles, they protect reasonably well. So it's not like O'Connell is going to be under siege. I got to force this to Adams. I have no time. That's not the case. There usually is time. So you can go to your second read. And so Devontae Adams, he had a 7 for 57 3 weeks ago, 1 for 11 on 7 targets, and we had 4 for 34. And Chad, the playbook might change now with no Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels was part of the impetus behind the Raiders bringing in Jacoby Myers. So, yeah, there were a lot of targets set his way. But we saw also, though, Jimmy G, in the limited time play with Adams, we saw when he would look to Adams, he didn't like the tight window. And he checked down. So I don't know how the offense is going to shake out, with Josh McDaniels in the rearview mirror. It'll be interesting here. All right, let's see here. Brian had a question as well. Do you start Brock Purdy over Dak? You know, I mean, Dak is in a great spot, but if the defense scores 2 touchdowns early, they don't have to pass the ball much. Dak is a boom bust play. He's an elite play, but there's a lot of downside if they don't need him. Like I said, 2 quick defensive scores or, set up, ball deep in the zone. And now all of a sudden they have a lead. Might not go bombs away. Brock Purdy coming out of the bye. We're supposed to get everybody back. Debo's is back. Trent Williams is supposed to be back. They're playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville's been excellent against the pass. Overall, can they hold up to the 49ers? I think that Dak has the much higher ceiling. I think Purdy has a higher floor here. That's what I'd say there. Adam Thompson, happy Friday. Already double digits, week 10. How are you doing, Adam?
Doing good. Made it through the Panthers, Bears, primetime extravaganza, unscathed. Actually, 2-1. Did well, hit all my props and missed out on Bears -3.5 by a single dang half point. But I'm happy with it. I'm ready to move on to some real football this weekend.
Real football. Now, Adam, DraftKings has this 50% profit boost on any one bet for the game. And I'm looking, all right, what prop do I want? And there's a lot of trap doors. And finally I settle out. I go, plus 230 for Deontay Foreman to be the first player to hit 20 yards. I go, oh yeah, sign me up for that. Hubbard ain't running for 20 yards, maybe the whole game. Ended up being that the quarterback, Bryce Young, got 16 yards early. But that was it for him. And then obviously, Roschon ain't doing anything. But so anyway, get a 50% profit boost and an initial plus 230. So that was over 4.5x my money on that one.
Wow, so, nice.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Nice way to get the weekend started, yeah.
Right? All right, let's talk some football here. Adam, as we know, is with bookies.com. He'll tell you about his work a little bit later. Documented winner. Adam is one of the best in the business. You always watch who you're taking your gambling advice from. Adam is one that you definitely want to listen to. Adam, let's get into some games here. We got the Commanders at the Seahawks. Look, Eric Bieniemy, he's got the offense sped up. He's got his quarterback getting the ball out quicker. So Sam Howell not taking all those crazy sacks he had been taking. The Seahawks recently got blasted against the Ravens. This is a nice matchup for them, and they're at home. They need to stay up on top of the division with the 49ers. How are you handicapping this game?
Yeah, Sam Howell, I mentioned on here a few weeks ago. I like what they're doing with Sam Howell. I see something in him, and somebody compared him yesterday to kind of the next Tom Brady as far as like being that day 3 quarterback that's actually could have a long career. I don't know if he's going to be Tom Brady when it's all said and done, but his last 2 games he's thrown for 397 yards, 325 yards. So they've figured out how to be successful. And they kind of got the back against the wall mentality. They traded away 2 of their two top edge rushers, essentially, away. They basically punted on the season, but Ron Rivera is kind of rallying the troops. And I think being on the road helps them. We saw it last week against New England. They pulled out a victory there. They're actually 4-0 against the spread on the road with 2 outright wins. So I actually think they have a chance here in Seattle. Obviously, the Seahawks bring a lot more offensive game than the Patriots did last week.
Yes.
But they've been highly erratic. They have 9 turnovers in their last 4 games. I think a Commanders team that's written off, that's getting 6.5 points right now, that might even get to 7 before kickoff. I actually like Washington to cover in this game. Worst case scenario, backdoor cover. We see what Sam Howell can do with these weapons that he has. They're going to keep throwing until the end. I mean, there's one game we threw 40 straight plays or passes. They haven't done that again lately, but I think if they're down by 14 going into the 4th quarter, they can certainly come back and lose this game by 6 or less.
You're so right. I mean, and the weapons he has. You start out with Terry McLaurin, and they finally unlocked Jahan Dotson, who's an elite talent player. They got Logan Thomas at tight end. When they get Gibson in the game, in the screen game, he's capable of a big play at any time. And whether they bring in Curtis Samuel with the back from his toe or Jamison Crowder, they have weapons. And so, like you said, with getting the ball out, they definitely can score points with many teams. So I think that's a great call. Commanders on the road, 6.5, you said right now, right?
Yeah, 6.5. And like I said, Seattle, Geno Smith, he's always good for one blunder. a game. He's so erratic. You know, you don't know if he's going to throw for 130 yards or 330 yards, and it could go either way. But I think Washington can keep up. Even if Geno has that good game, I think Washington, like you said, they have the firepower, they have the tools to keep it close.
And one prop I like in this game, DK Metcalf over the receiving yardage. If he sees any snaps on Emmanuel Forbes, who's like a quarter of his size, that's what. But he has an advantage over any corner there. And then with those two edge rushers, like you mentioned, Adam, Montez Sweat and Chase Young gone, now the downfield pass, we could see one. So I like DK Metcalf to get big yardage in this game, but I do like your call on the Commanders plus the points. One of the highlight matchups of the week, 49ers come in having lost 3 straight. They're expected to get Trent Williams, the all-world left tackle, back, expected to get Deebo Samuel back. So the boys are back in town. They're going to the Jaguars, who do nothing but win lately. So they're coming out of their bye. This is going to be fun watching. And remember, the 49ers also added more firepower to their pass rush in the last few weeks. They have 2 new rushers to go with Nick Bosa. So it's going to be fun. How do you break this game down?
Yeah, Jacksonville keeps winning. And early on, we watched them like, either this team is just a fraud or something's just not clicking, whatever it is. But kudos to them. Now they've won 5 in a row. They've figured it out, obviously. As far as the Niners go, the bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Actually, it could have come at a better time, maybe a week before. But
yes,
they scored 17 straight points, exactly 17 straight, 3 straight games. Before that, they had scored over at least 30 in every game. So something wasn't clicking. I think the 2 returnees that are coming back, especially, well, I guess both, but Williams especially. Purdy has really been kind of just more jittery. He's, his turnovers. The Niners have 6 turnovers in their last 2 games. I think they had like 3 in the previous 6 games. So I think having Williams back will be a huge deal for them, and Deebo. I think that's going to be a big deal. Meanwhile, the Jaguars, they rank 3rd against the run. They're a very good team at stopping the run. They rank dead last in covering receivers out of the backfield.
Yes.
And now here comes maybe the greatest ever do it, coming to Jacksonville. We'll see what he does. But you talk about props, McCaffrey props. They're usually kind of high. I think they're probably not going to be high enough. So I actually like the Niners -3 on the road.
Yeah, that McCaffrey matchup and that the over prop on his receiving yardage, that is probably a great one to hit there. Like you said, Jacksonville's dreadful against defending that position. So yeah, I like that. Charlene is asking about weather for that game. Slight chance of showers as of right now, 71 degrees. So the wind was mild. So that should, as of right now, that should not be an issue to worry about. Of course, it is Central Florida, so you never know what'll happen. But right now, I think we're going to be pretty safe with that. Good call on that one as always, Adam. Let's go. Another one of the games that maybe it's a little more name highlight game than a real highlight game. The Lions, they're coming. They were thumped by recently by the Ravens. They have another AFC game here. This time it's a little easier sledding. Chargers are good at beating up on bad teams, but realistically, they struggle defensively against any team with a diversified offense. Meanwhile, the Lions, Jared Goff on the road, not as good as at home, but they got their offensive line back and David Montgomery back. How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, the Chargers, I like the Jets over the Chargers last week. And in reality, the Chargers had no business winning that game. Zach Wilson willed it so with his play. But otherwise, the Jets dominated, Herbert dominated that offense. And now Palmer's out. So another weapon is gone now, right, for the Chargers. So I think, pound for pound, I saw a comparison of is Justin Herbert and the Chargers the same thing as Matthew Stafford and the Lions? Just lots of stats, just chucking it around, going to Pro Bowls, not winning games. And unfortunately, that seems like that's a really good comparison right now. We'll see if that changes. I don't think it's going to change this week. I think the Lions, they're coming off their bye. They've had time to reassess. They have all these weapons. They get their own line back, like you said. And Goff against the worst pass defense in the NFL. In LA, every Chargers game is a home team for the other team.
Yes.
Detroit, anybody in Southern Cal who has any Detroit roots is going to be there. It's going to be up for grabs, pro Goff. The last thing is, the Chargers are coming off a short week. And the Lions are coming off a bye. So that's another huge advantage for Detroit. So not laying nearly enough points. I think this should be at least a 7-point game, 6-point game. You might have to worry about the back door if that was the spread, but it's not. It's about 2.5. I love Detroit in this one. I think this is my favorite pick of the week, actually.
Yeah, it's a great call. And like you said, this is a significantly better team. And like you mentioned, the Chargers do not have home field advantage. And so that there's a lot to be said for them. I want to add one thing for fantasy players out there. If you are in a deep league, you are totally in a bind for a flex. Try Jalen Guyton. He played 57% of the snaps last week. He's the deep threat who hadn't been around. He tore his ACL week 3 last year. And he came back. Obviously, against the Jets, they weren't throwing the ball at all. He had 2 targets. But the Lions, the one thing you can do is you can throw deep on them, and they need the downfield game in that offense. Guyton is their deep threat. And so I do think if you're in a desperate pinch, or if you're betting over on his yards, because they are going to get him some shots in this game, he probably converts at least one of them. He was very successful when he last played in 2021, and this is offense is a little more downfield driven. But like Adam said, the Lions are the play here. They should be able to dominate. Any other words on the game?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm intrigued by that game. You know, I've always kind of liked the Chargers, but not loved the Chargers. But the defense has been a real disappointment this year. I thought they'd be a lot better. And you know, from a coaching perspective, I don't know what you do anymore. You know, Brandon Staley's got a dead coach walking.
Yes.
You think they had to make a tangible improvement this year for him to maybe stick around, and at this rate, that's not going to happen.
The last thing I'm going to say is people watched Monday night. They saw that pass rush go off. Just understand, it was the Jets offensive line. It was Zach Wilson. We saw Khalil Mack tear up Las Vegas with Aiden O'Connell. That pass rush has not been good against good offenses. The Lions have a top 3 pass blocking line. They are not getting pressure on Jared Goff much in this game at all. Don't even worry about that. Next game, Adam. So the Atlanta Falcons, who, hey, the record's decent, but this team looks like they're kind of crumbling at the seams. Defensively, they're okay. They're holding up, but they're nothing special. The Cardinals, it's an exciting week for them. It looks like James Conner's coming back. It looks like Kyler Murray's coming back. They got Hollywood Brown. Like they said in the Blues Brothers, we got the band back. Well, how do you see this game?
Well, allow me to pour some rain on this parade back to Arizona, because now, you know, it's I'm taking Atlanta. I'm not a huge all in. They're actually terrible when they're expected to win. You know, they're favored by about 1.5 points here. They're 1-5 against the spread when they're actually favored. You know, and that's mainly due to rampant turnovers. You know, Desmond Ritter's not going to play. Taylor Heineke is back under there. They've actually outgained 4 of their last 5 opponents. They're just not figuring out how to win games because they keep turning the ball over. Well, I think against Arizona, in the trenches, I think Arizona is just too outmatched. You know, no Grady Jarrett on obviously still for Atlanta for the rest of the year. But I think they still have an advantage. I think Atlanta can get back to what they want to do and what they need to do to be successful. And that's running the ball. That's getting the ball to their playmakers out of the backfield. You know, first things first. So I think they can do that. Kyler Murray, that is exciting. I'm excited to see him back. But what are we going to get? It's been a year since he tore his ACL. He's never played for this coach before. So I think there's going to be some bumps. I don't think we're going to see the Kyler today, the same Kyler in week 14. I think he's going to continue to improve and continue to gain confidence. So I think this is just kind of a feeling out game at home against Atlanta, a very winnable game. But, you know, give me Atlanta by 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, a lot of us are guilty, Adam. We see the guy coming back, and we have a little over zealousness. And you're right. Usually, a first game after a long layoff, it's one of those feeling out processes. So I think that puts some very nice, sober commentary on what is an exciting story. And I am excited to see Kyler play, but you're right. We got to temper that. And Atlanta's been a good defense. So this is not like a cake matchup he's walking into. So let's do now. I think we're kind of good on time. So do you want to do Texas Bengals or do you want to jump out?
I mean, I can do it really quick.
Do it quick. Texas Bengals. Give me a real quick one. Tell me who's going to cover maybe 1 or 2 points.
Bengals. Take the Bengals. How's that? Stroud, we saw Stroud last week look awesome. For the previous couple of weeks, he had not looked so good. I think Cincinnati's defense is just too good. And Houston's defense, they've allowed 340 and 350 to Desmond Ridder and to Derek Carr. So what's Joe Burrow, the most confident, in his most confident form, going to do against his defense? I just don't think Texans keep up. -6.5. If it's -7, I can understand staying away. -6.5, grab it while you can.
Adam, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Twitter, X.com, whatever you want to call it. Bookies Adam. You can find me out there and on Instagram, and bookies.com/picks for all the picks.
Every Friday, it's Adam Thompson. For Adam, I'm Jim. Everybody, good luck this week, and we'll see you soon.